Hello everyone, my name is Robert Mũnũku. I'm a visual artist, writer and filmmaker based in Nairobi, Kenya. Today I'm going to give you a webinar, a short session on creative writing for film. The purpose of this is to allow you to delve into the creative process of storytelling in the hope that you'll eventually have a product that is film. Thank you and I hope you enjoy. I would like to discuss a few things that may help anybody who wishes to venture into writing for film. And I would just like to say at this point, I have some of my notes which I'll be glancing at now and then. But I just want to say that this is not going to be an in-depth class on creative writing because that's a whole other field which will take a long time. I would just like to touch on creative writing for film. That is, how do you develop ideas that translate into film? And I'll look at 4 or 5 things that I believe are crucial elements, that are core elements when you're discussing film and writing for film. And the first is how do you develop a story idea and how do you come up with something that's original. The second will be the storytelling process. The third thing that I'll look at is storyboarding. I'll also look at genres in film, and I'll also touch on screenplays. But again, I would like to say that these are very broad areas and they take much more time. If nothing at all, what you should come out of this short session with is an understanding that can lay the foundation for you to already start writing for your next film. So just to get into it, I would like to say when you're developing a story idea, you must remember that there's nothing new under the sun. So do not feel scared when you come up with an idea and do some online research or even offline research and later find out that that idea has actually been done. The truth is you'll always get someone who's done what you're thinking about. But the hack is the how. How do you differentiate your idea from the one that's been done before? And that is where storytelling comes in. When you're coming up with a story idea, one thing you need to be key on is 3 things I always say that work well for me, and I hope this also works well for you. The first is, has it been done before, or has the story been done before? And that's where originality comes in. Truth be told, many times you will get that certain themes have been told before. So the hack here is how you do it. And this will touch on when I talk about storytelling. Many people can tell the same story in different ways. So when you're coming up with a story idea for film, you can ask yourself, you can jot down a number of ideas and then ask yourself, has this been told before? The second thing you need to look at and consider is what I call the so what test. So what? And why I call it so what is because why should I bother? You may find that you have an idea. For example, you want to write about, as I gave an example before, how do cables in a server room create spaghetti and prevent the technician from going in? Well, we all know it's a reality, it happens. There's cable spaghetti, but so what? So that's a very extreme example. There are more, less boring kind of examples I would give, but the bottom line is how interesting is your story. So the so what test allows you to measure the interest value or the entertainment value of your story. You may have a story about, again, going back to the first thing you need to look at about originality, maybe events that happened in your country. Maybe in Kenya we had the 2007 post-election violence. Many people have produced articles, films, and other material on that. But then again, the thing is, it's an important issue. So in as much as the theme is not quote-unquote original or exclusive to you, it's something of social value. Hence my third test of your story idea and whether it's a good one, and that is, what is the social relevance of your story idea? So just to quickly go through the 3 again. The first is, how original is your story? Has it been told before? And the second is the so what test, the interest or entertainment value of your story. And the last one is the so what, the social relevance and how you plan to effect change, or how do you plan to contribute to existing knowledge with your film. Another thing I need to look at with you when you're developing stories, and now we are into storytelling, which is the next thing, is 4 things: your character, your setting, your point of view, and theme. There are many other things you can look at, but I want to pick these for these purposes of creative writing in film. You need to have a character. Your character is what becomes the actor in your screenplay when you actually write your screenplay. Characters are very important because they are the vehicle that carries the story from start to finish. You need a setting. A setting is the universe that your story unfolds. Setting does not have to be physical, like this seat or anything. It could be chronological setting. What time in history is your film based in, or your story? Is it in the 80s? Is it in the 60s? So when you're writing for film, you have to know how to establish setting. And there are many ways of doing this without being literal about it. You do not have to have a character saying, hey, my name is John and I am in this building in 1985. You could simply use set design to evoke the same thing. Maybe in the set, in his living room, there's an old dial telephone, which, by the way, was being used at that time. And you'd probably not have a cell phone in the set because by that time, they were not using them at all. You probably would have wardrobe as a way of expressing setting. If someone is wearing flares or what do you call them, bell-bottom trousers, then you probably know it's in the 70s or late 60s, or the afro and so on and so forth. So there are various ways I invite you to explore online and offline about setting. And the other thing is the point of view. Who is this story being told to, and who is telling it? Like, who is the person telling this story and how is it being told? For example, we have various narration formats. We could have a first-person narration. We could have a third-person narration. We could have an imagined kind of setup where events unfold. So the point of view of your story is also critical, and we'll touch about a bit on that when we look at style. And the other thing I would like to look at is, and this is a common mistake, I also get many questions on this, is people come to me and they tell me, how can I do fiction storytelling and you're telling me to be realistic at the same time? And I want to say this: creativity does not mean being fake. And as I even wrote it down on my notes, many writers excuse bad storytelling by saying it was out of the box or creative. This is false. Bad writing is just that, bad writing. Creativity is not far from the truth. The only difference is that it's expressed interestingly. So even if you're doing extreme fiction like fantasy or sci-fi, you need to remember within the universe you create, there has to be a logical sequence. For example, if in your universe certain people get sick when they're exposed to certain things, you must maintain that consistency. And when you break it, your story becomes unrealistic. So creativity needs to be mapped out logically within your universe. And you have to remember this when you're writing. Quickly, just to talk about storyboarding. A storyboard, you do not have to be a visual artist or a good illustrator to come up with a storyboard. But nonetheless, you could always hire a storyboard artist to map out your ideas. Because remember, we are talking about creative writing for film. And film is a visual product. Another thing you need to do is sharpen your visual literacy. What is visual literacy? Basically, it's how you make sense of images in a way that, in this case, can tell a story. You're not doing a book. You're not doing a short story. You're doing a film, or at least you're writing for film. And we'll get to the last part of this, which is screenplay development. So you have to remember, how do you want this story that I'm telling to play itself out? And a very easy way I find that works for me is just doing sketches and giving kind of maybe even camera angles in your head. You'd say maybe this dialogue is taking place in this way, in this room, set from this perspective. Maybe there are parts of the dialogue which are imagined, for example. So all these things also tie into style. Another thing I would like to say before I finish on storyboarding is that you need to practice and you need to watch a number of films, because if you're not watching films, how can you make films? It's like, if you're not cooking, how can you become a chef? If you're not reading books, how can you become a writer? The more you watch, the more your mind kind of attunes itself into whatever it is you're watching. So as a filmmaker, you're watching and you're also writing and you're also making your films. That is an interplay that has to keep happening. You will not go to a library, read 100 books about making films, then you never make a film and become a filmmaker. In the same way, an athlete cannot go to a library, read 100 books about nutrition, exercise, and everything, and then become a sprinter and win a gold medal. You actually have to do it. So the other thing I want to look at is genre, because this is really key, especially for those who are making films. I want to say this, and I said this in my other class, is two filmmakers can make the same story, actually with the same script, but of different genres. Let me give an example, for lack of a better one. If you've watched the television series 24, starring Kiefer Sutherland, and if you've watched the television series Homeland, starring Claire Danes, they are both of the same theme. Theme is different from genre. Theme is what you're talking about. Genre is the style you're using to express what you're talking about. Homeland and 24, same themes. Counter-violence, extremism, terrorism, and all that. But if you are actually to analyze the television series, you'd realize that 24 is more of action thriller and Homeland is more of drama. So my point is, you could tell the same story with the same themes, but use different genres. Why am I saying this? You don't make stories for the sake of making stories. You first make them for yourself as an artist, but you also make it for an audience. So you have to choose the best genre that you feel will achieve what you're trying to as a storyteller. If drama achieves better what you want to tell, use drama. If thriller and action achieve it better, go ahead and do it. So I urge you to also do your own research on the different kinds of genres. There are very many. There are sub-genres: action, fantasy, epic, biopic, drama, thriller, buddy film, film noir, film de femme. All these are genres. So once you have your story idea, just as we've moved in this logical sequence, and you've come up with your storyboard, you know how your story will visually unfold. You can now sit down, once obviously you have all your elements, the character, setting, point of view, and theme, sit down and decide what genre best evokes this story that I'm trying to tell. As we come to the last part of what I wish to discuss today in this webinar of creative writing for film, I would like to mention that you need to be really open to playing with your creative environment. Just as you have colors, if you have the primary colors of red, green, and blue, or in science, that's in science. In art, it's red, green, it's red, blue, and yellow. When you mix those colors, you get other colors, secondary colors. And when you mix those, you get other and other and other and other. In truth, you can mix colors and mix and mix and mix, and you'll get new products. Creativity is no different. And the same thing applies to film and creative writing for film. There is nothing new under the sun. Yes, we hear people saying that. But the thing they don't tell you is, in as much as there's nothing new under the sun, whatever is under the sun can create new products. So you can mix and mash these things. You have genre, you have themes. Mix and mash, and that's where style comes in. If you look at some of the really good or renowned directors, they have a significant sense of style which comes out in their films, and immediately we watch it, we can say, oh, that's an Ava DuVernay film, that is a Nuri Kahiu film, that is a Martin Scorsese film, or a Stanley Kubrick film, because over the years they have learned how to play with technique and create style. And just to give you some small tips, again, this is not cast in medieval bronze, you can always play with it, and that's the idea. You can use, for example, twists. I put this down, where a simple twist is the bad guy ending up being the good guy. We've seen that 100 times, but now how do you do it? So you can play with twists. M. Night Shyamalan likes using that a lot. If you've watched The Village and some of his other films, even I think Split is his, you'd find that he likes using twist. So twist is a stylistic device. Another one of these stylistic devices you can use is the mind-boggling types or mystery. For example, you could have a character walking home and he ends up in another setting. Especially this is used for fantasy and other kinds of dramatic storytelling. So you can create mystery where you give something to the audience, but you do not resolve it for them. You leave it open-ended in a way that they can come up with a number of options of resolving it. That's a stylistic device. And it makes your story more interesting because you create suspense. Suspense is offering something but not giving it completely. So your audience is forced to engage you until it's finally revealed. But then again, with the stylistic device of mystery, you never give what you promise. You never resolve the suspense. So these are some of the things that you can use as stylistic devices. Other more basic ones you can try out when you're doing your first short film is playing with visuals. Start a story from the end and finish with the beginning. And you could mix shots, and you could also play with dialogue and thoughts. For example, you could have two characters in a scene. One is actually talking to the other one is responding with thought. So that makes it more interesting, for example, as opposed to a normal conversation. The idea is, how do you make your film more interesting? How do you make your stories more interesting to tell? And lastly, I would like to say, I would like to talk about screenplays. And I would like to mention at this point that if you're a good writer, a short story writer, or you're used to writing literature, novels and the like, it does not mean that you're good in screenwriting or writing scripts, because it just means that you're good in grammar and you have a head start from like somebody who doesn't know how to write at all. So what you need to understand is a screenplay is typically different from a book or a short story. A screenplay, in my opinion, is the same as a camera, or it's the same as the sound recordist's mixer. It's the same as the DJ's equalizer. It's the same as all these pieces of equipment you find on a film set. Because a screenplay is not a final product that someone can sit at home and say, today I'm going to read this screenplay titled this. No. A screenplay has various instructions, like it has instructions for the cinematographer or the DP, the director of photography. It has instructions for the editor, fade in, fade out, cut, hold to black, or whatever, such that when the editor is editing the final product, they are able to use the script as a guide. And actually, most importantly, a script bears the dialogue and instruction also for the actors, the cast. And in this sense, you must understand that a script or a screenplay is basically an instructive tool. I hope all these things have helped, and I just like to reiterate the fact that should you come up with a story or an idea, put it down. The worst idea is the one that's not written. Always put down your ideas and get started. Other than that, I feel that this should give you a stepping stone into the creative process and start writing. Well, that's it for today. I hope you learned something, and I look forward to seeing some of the products you create yourselves. Thank you, and looking forward to more.